and we have Tony, and we have Chris, and we have Susan.
Yes.
Okay. So we are the 4. Okay.
Phil, I think was expected, but
Okay.
we do have our quorum, so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for patience. Sorry that I was having some technical difficulties, but it is 6:02. So we will go ahead and call this special meeting to order for USD 348 Board of Education meeting. We just have one agenda item tonight that we'll need to approve. Before we do that, if there is anyone that is at home or watching, just a reminder that the parent and staff feedback survey about next semester is due on this Friday the 13th. And also our evaluation for Mr. Dorothy is due this Wednesday, the 11th. So just a couple little housekeeping reminders for us. And with that, may I have an approval for the agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Tony. And I saw Chris raise his hand. Were you second? Okay. So Tony has moved. Chris has seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Agenda approved 4-0. And with that, the agenda item, it's a singular meeting topic. We're going to be talking about the opportunity for COVID testing. Mr. Dorothy will talk to us about that, and then we will have an opportunity to ask questions and discuss. And I see Nurse Lisa Patrick is on with us as well. Thank you, Lisa. And other admins who are joining us tonight. So Mr. Dorothy, I will turn it over to you so you can explain to the board the decision that we need to make tonight.
Well, the decision the board needs to make tonight is whether or not to offer COVID testing for those families and staff that choose to have testing. Most certainly, the testing will be done by the county for November and December. And then they are asking us to take that over in January. The cost is borne by the county through their Sparks money. So there is no cost to us. The only thing that Lisa brought up to me this afternoon, which is probably true, is that our people that do testing will have to have PPE to do that job. We have some of that now. We may need more in order to help protect them when they test. So there might be a little more PPE that we order than what we already have in order to make sure that happens. The county's reason for doing this is the opportunity to possibly catch more folks that might be asymptomatic and have COVID. There would not be any quarantine for someone on this testing unless we found out that they tested positive. So just because they take this test does not mean that they have to automatically quarantine like someone that went and did their own testing, or Lisa had told them you'll have to go get testing for this reason. So this will happen, I believe, twice a month is their plan, or what they're going to attempt to do. In the time that we have left in the month and in December, I don't know that they'll get that many times in. Sarah informed me that they would like to start Baldwin on November 30th. Originally, they had proposed November 16th. So we got in a hurry, got this all set up so that we could be ready for November 16th. And as it appears, they're going to try and have it ready for November 30th for us. So right after we come back from Thanksgiving. And then I believe she said they would try and test at least one more time before we leave for winter break. So that's kind of where we're at. Before we move forward with this, we felt like the board should consider, make the motion to approve or not to approve, whether we have this available as a service for people in our district. So with that, I will leave this up to questions. Lisa most certainly has some more expertise on some of this than I most certainly do. I do know that Deb got to set in on the last meeting with the group. So Deb picked up a number of things and took some notes. And most certainly I asked the principals to be here in order that you could ask them some questions on it. But my recommendation on it, well, I'll wait for your questions.
So Paul, when you say twice, they're going to do this testing twice a month. What exactly does that mean? They'll be here 2 times a month, and there'll be like a day where everybody who wants to have this test will do the saliva test?
They will do a random drawing of a percentage of those that sign up. So not everybody, but a random drawing, and they will test those. They will come in 2 days a month and test those people that got drawn for the random testing. That's the way it was explained to me.
And do you have an idea of how many of these tests they're targeting? What's the total number per test?
Well, I know they wanted to start with 25% of the big group this first time. I think that percentage will be smaller at the preceding tests. But the numbers completely depend on how many of our parents or staff members say, I want to do this and sign the consent paper to do it.
Right.
And at this point, Tony and board, I can't tell you how many people will want this or not want it. So I don't know what our numbers will be here.
Okay.
The document provided in the board doc says 10 ongoing basis, 10% of students per month.
Okay.
And then it also goes on to say it will be allocated based on vulnerability and risks. So I just wondered if you could, or whomever was sitting in the meeting, could tell me a little more about how they're determining vulnerability and risk.
Lisa, I'm going to have to go to you on that one.
And honestly, and I think I mentioned this the other night in the board meeting, I had to step out several times. So I might have to ask Deb if she has notes on that, what they meant on that. Sorry about that.
I can't find my notes, but from my memory, the risk was for example, kids in choir or kids in band that might have greater risk.
That makes sense.
They would somehow figure out how to test those kids if consent had been given for them.
So potential athletes too, who are involved in extracurricular, are going to be intermingling with other kids.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Good.
And it was, the numbers that they threw out were about 10 students at the elementary level and 15 to 20 at the secondary level.
So Lisa, this is a question for you because I want to be sensitive to cost here. I know that perhaps extra PPE may be necessary. Is this in terms of the amount of time that staff would have to devote to this? Is this going to be a manageable process? I mean, are you going to be directly involved in this? So it's going to take away from some of your other responsibilities, or do they come in and they do it all? on
Yeah,
their
they would
turn?
come in. The plan is, I think, for them to come in and do it all, those first couple of times before the first of the year. And then I think we would be involved in the training. We would be trained while they're doing that process, the end of
Right.
November and the month of December. And I don't think it's going to be an issue just because numbers are lower in the classroom this semester, depending on what we decide for next semester. We're not as busy in the nurse's office in each of the buildings. So as far as time wise, right now we'd be able to handle it.
Yeah, I just want to be careful that we don't write a check that starts to be really costly in the spring semester, right? They're doing it now, but then there's a transition where we have to take over the responsibility for it. And this has a potential blown up.
If I understand right, mainly I think our cost would be, any additional PPE, which if you're talking, twice a month per each school, it's not going to be a whole lot more as far as personal protective equipment, but it will be some.
Okay.
So about how many staff members on our side will need to have that training then? Like come January or February, whenever that kicks over?
4 of us.
4, okay.
I think we'd be able to manage it with the health services.
Okay.
In each of the buildings.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
They estimated that once things got rolling, it would take about 10 to 15 minutes per building.
Mm-hmm.
Total.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just don't, in this era, I don't want to add on more responsibility that's like, okay, here's another thing you got to do that takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I know our local, at least one of our local assisted living care centers has gone from once a week testing for their staff to twice a week. So if you look at the numbers today, our graph is not going in the direction we would like it to. So I have no objection to bringing testing into our school for those who comply. I've no concerns as long as our staff feels like we can pull that off. Now, my other question about that is then does a district-wide or building-specific email go out following up with families, requiring them to either opt in or opt out? Is there I'm sure there's a plan for that, but kind of to Tony's point, I just want to make everybody's already doing so much. And I just, I want to make sure the assistance that is needed to pull off such endeavors is thought through so that we're not just piling on. But I have no objections to doing this. I think it's a great idea.
There's some examples in the board docs also of letters to get consent, which look, obviously they're examples, right? Because they have Lawrence School District. Those, yeah.
So if the board approves, if you approve, beginning Wednesday, not tomorrow, we will start a process of getting information out to parents and staff about what the program is about, why it's being offered, and what the test will be like, what kind of test, so on. There's quite a bit of information in some of the letters and such that we have. We will get that out to parents and then give them some time, obviously now till the 30th, give them plenty of time to decide whether they want to be involved or not. I know there was mention about having them opt out, but I really feel in this situation, it should be an opt-in. I think we definitely want to make sure that mom and dad are signing off and saying, yes, I want my child involved. I don't want to run a blanket thing and say, if you let us know that you don't want your child involved, because all it takes is somebody to not pay attention well, and then we test them, and having somebody being extremely upset because we went ahead and tested and said, well, we hadn't heard from you, so we thought we would go ahead. So I think we're going to have that signed piece of paper that says, yes, I'm giving you consent to test my kid at school for COVID.
Yeah, and before what I thought was we were trying to get as many kids tested as possible, and that's not the case at all. So I think that makes perfect sense if we're only going to have, well, ongoing 10% of the population, that there shouldn't be a problem getting that for opt-in.
Did that answer the original question? I think Kelly, okay. Lisa, I guess I'll ask a question.
Anyone else have questions?
Lisa, I want to know from you, do you feel we can do this? The board members are asking, and so I'm asking right now, do you think we can do this, or are we taking on, it's taken on more things, and I know you're busy already.
Mhm.
If you think we can do this and it's important to do, great. If you tell me right now, and the board members right now, Mr. Dorothy, we've already got a lot to do, I think that's important for you to say.
Mhm. No, I think that we can probably, just the fact that they're only planning on twice a month, we're talking 10 students at the elementary level, 15 at the secondary level at the most. I've talked to my staff. They feel fairly comfortable with it, as long as there's plenty of training. I think it's going to be helpful, especially going into the coming months. When it's obviously already kind of picking up speed a little bit. So I think it will be helpful. But yeah, I think we can do it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would view this as having the potential, perhaps, of actually reducing the workload for the nursing staffs at all the schools. I mean, if we can catch this early,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna reduce the amount of spread that we have. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of comfort in that too for staff members, for families, for kids to know that if we have a fairly frequent testing dates there, we can catch this pretty early on.
Right. Yeah. I wish it were more than just twice a month, but I understand that they have limited capacity for testing. Kelly, do you need a motion for this? You still there?
I need light and I need a motion. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I would make a motion that we approve the COVID-19 testing protocol that the county is offering us.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Susan. Tony has moved and Susan has seconded that we approve the county program for testing within our buildings for COVID-19 on an optional basis for families, which will be communicated respectively through each building. All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right. That is our only agenda item, guys. So with that, we can have a motion to adjourn, unless there's anything else. Mr. Dorothy, anything else you want to mention before we sign off?
No, nope.
Okay. All right.
All right. I move that we adjourn.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Chris has moved and Tony seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Meeting adjourned 4-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and we will see you on the 23rd.